There are a few creative people that when they refer to their work, there's this phrase I hear them say from time to time, and I just can't, well, you tell me. The phrase is, I'm my own biggest critic. Every time I hear someone say that, I don't believe them. The fact is, the person who actually does the work just isn't in the position to see it from every angle. Now, I do believe some people certainly don't care about other people's criticisms, but that's a different topic. The English word criticism is rooted in the common French word we all know, critique, which comes from the ancient Greek origin kritos, meaning judge. The point I'm making is not that criticisms are bad. In fact, quite the opposite. Being critical of your work is absolutely essential, but I think where criticism actually comes from is just as important. And maybe that's why I don't like the idea of being your biggest critic. Could it be that being your own biggest critic means that perhaps subconsciously you're trying to avoid criticisms from people other than yourself? For most of us, we learned at a young age that being overly sensitive to criticism meant that we were weak. As young adults, that evolved into an association where we connect criticism to negativity. Taken to its extremes, I've worked with people who were unable to tell the difference between a criticism and an attack. In short, viewing criticism as purely a bad thing means we're unknowingly impacting good decision-making through a problem known as omitted variable bias. Omitted variable bias happens when we unintentionally leave out relevant information, so when it comes time to draw conclusions, the data set we sample is not entirely accurate. For example, the total runtime of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the extended edition, is 686 minutes. The trilogy was nominated for 30 Academy Awards and won 17 of them. That averages out to winning an Oscar for every 40 minutes of the movie. This means we can conclude that in order to win more Oscars, you need to make your movies longer. While accurate maybe to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, we know this conclusion is wrong because we're putting too much emphasis on runtime and omitted several other variables like story, performance, and execution. And those are the elements that win Oscars, not runtime. As you've seen in the past few months, the Strata team is really excited about the ideas that we're building in my living room, but that's where our concern lies. There are ideas, and they only exist in my living room. Sure, we're trying to be critical of what we're doing, but if I'm my own biggest critic, then we're not inviting the criticism that we need to ensure that our idea is going to work. We admit that we can't accurately see the flaws in Strata, and our omitted variable bias is that we haven't spoken to enough people who have no bias. The good news is that we were able to get some investors to believe in Strata, but other than our friends and families and investors, we haven't gotten very many people to weigh in on whether or not the idea behind Strata is a good or a bad idea. And that's what scares me. When the same people talk in the same place about the same subject, the limited voices captured in those walled conversations strongly influence the conclusions that we reach. Those conclusions strongly influence the direction of our business, and if that is missing perspective, we may be underinformed. The point is, we need to start stress testing our ideas beyond these walls and share with as many people as possible. If you know me at all, you know that I am a huge, gargantuan fan of trade shows. But I consistently run into people that ask me why, and then they tell me that they debate attending them or have stopped going altogether. When I ask them why they aren't attending, the most common reply is, if I can learn everything about the new technology that's being released online, why would I go in person? Wow, that is so short-sighted. For me, the equipment only represents a small portion of the value trade shows bring. I continue to go to technology trade shows year after year, not because of the technology, but because of the people. It's convenient to assume that business is purely transactional, but in reality, emotions play a huge role in business decisions. I am confident that some of the biggest and most important projects I've ever gotten off the ground come from in-person exchanges. I know that's not unique to me, but there are people that believe attending trade shows aren't worth it because you might as well just read about it. Well, I simply have never found that to be the case. Traveling is hard, but just like anything else, if you invest nothing, you get nothing. And when you put in a lot, you get a lot out of it. So for us, the process of attending trade shows is all about preparation. And that starts by setting goals.
Today is the 14th, so IBC is 1 month from today. So we're coming live a month from today. So in 4 weeks, we are going to IBC.
On your big announcements like IDC and these other things, we want to be able to know, all right, a lot of people might be tagging you, a lot of people might be doing this, like we need to prepare.
We met with our PR partners to discuss how to build an ideal press release. We prioritized who we wanted to meet with at the event and got them all scheduled.
I think we're going to go to IBC, and yeah, we're not going to own the world, but we're going to be in the news cycle, and people are going to be like, there they are, and that's it.
We built a deck that allowed us to summarize our business vision in short order. We rehearsed our story and outlined the objectives for each independent partner. We even built a new Strata simulator so people could see the most recent progress. And that also means we have to leave the safety of my own living room and go somewhere that we can invite fresh perspectives, including criticism. So we booked some flights and traveled to the International Broadcasters Convention in Amsterdam, where we decided to officially announce Strata to the public. Hey, check this out. This is the inspiration for the Strata color scheme right here. 80s sun right there. Pete, Austin, and I headed to Amsterdam, flying KLM Delta. Not very interoperable. Strata is all about interoperability. The airline connection kind of process needs some work.
What is it that we want to convey? How do we make them feel like they're special?
Well, you're one step closer to joining the beta program.
Oh, I like that.
Just landed in Amsterdam. It's the 14th. Slept about 30 minutes on the plane.
With all of this work, we improved our chances of capturing insight, advice, and especially criticisms.
So you're talking about the analytics stuff where you're doing speech to text or object recognition and that kind of thing, rather than the generative endpoints. Could you then offer a service to your customers where you could compare the results from two different analytical services, where one might return different confidence to another and kind of
Sitting in a hotel lobby, jet lagged after a long flight, we officially launched the Strata website and press release, and more than 25 publications picked it up. We started to see patterns in the questions that writers and publications asked us, as well as the topics they highlighted once they published. Not surprisingly, AI was a common headline, but several started zeroing in on thoughts about an AI-powered marketplace. In addition to sharing more about the business, our focus was also on establishing partnerships to improve workflow for everyone. We met with more than a dozen companies so we could explain to them our vision and get their feedback. We really wanted to give space for outsiders to provide that feedback, both from people we knew and people we didn't. We know how important it is to listen more to the people who have no vested interest in our business. Their reactions are the most pure. In an effort to further reduce the risk of omitted variable bias, we did several interviews and podcasts where we were able to share our vision and invite questions, discussions, and skepticism.
To be honest, I have to say, Michael, the last couple of months, I've been getting texts on the regular being like, do you know what Michael and Peter are up to? So I'm just so full of questions. This is really cool.
Game changer. I think the smart money is not betting against you.
I hope so. It's new, it's coming fast. We are all about velocity here. What's gonna happen is we're gonna start to taskify our jobs. We're gonna see our jobs farmed out into little tasks. If you open up an application and use a slice of it, you're paying for the whole app. Right. We wanna allow people just to pay for the tasks they wanna pay for. And we think there's a future in behavioral workflow change that might support that. Strata is very early right now. We're using words like it will, it should, it can, right? As opposed to it does.
Yeah, well, you're being very open about that.
We're trying to be transparent.
I think that, brings a lot of confidence with it, because if there's something that's difficult, you'll tell us about it, but you'll also tell us how you solved it, and that's going to build authenticity, and people will depend on the product.
So after an incredible event at IBC and a fantastic community reception to Strata, what did we learn? Well, we learned that no matter who we talk to, people seem to agree that an AI-powered workflow is a solution to a problem that they want to see solved. On top of the numerous conversations with people we knew, we were invited to many meetings with people and businesses we've never heard of. And when we returned home, we were met by new invitations to meetings and co-marketing opportunities. And I can't believe I'm saying this, customers. If you check out strata.tech, you can actually sign up for the product. And we figured since no one has ever heard of Strata and they don't know what it is, not to mention it doesn't do anything yet, there was an outside chance maybe we could see 100, maybe 150 people sign up. But by the time we landed back in LA, we blew that number up to 250. We even got calls from businesses that want to sponsor us. Now, as encouraging as all this information is, we were looking for criticisms to help us while it's still in the early process. And we did get several criticisms that did help us, such as, how will we populate the marketplace? Is our target market the ideal starting point? Is internet bandwidth ready for a fully cloud workflow? How much should Strata cost? And will users find value without a marketplace? We welcome this feedback because we believe it's imperative to look at our business model with a high degree of skepticism. The sooner we realize one of our aims is misguided, the sooner we can correct it. We all probably can think of a horror story where people invest a lot of time and money and can't get a vision off the ground no matter how hard they try. Some creatives assume the problem is with their market exposure, when in fact, the problem is probably with the vision. In our experience, to avoid this and try to better train ourselves to avoid omitted variable bias, we are trying to hold ourselves accountable to these ideas. Make yourself vulnerable. Stress test every assumption. Create a space for criticism and digest and apply conclusions no matter how difficult. So, after 17 weeks, we think we successfully started a startup. I personally want to thank those of you who have taken this little journey with us. Your feedback, good and bad, has been so helpful in motivating us to keep doing this. Thank you. Some of you actually wrote in that you've decided to start your own startups and you're following what we learned in this series. Congratulations. Let us know how we can help. And someone even told me that they're going to change up their tool sets because they learned from our series. Let us know how we can help there. And a bunch of you said that you also got screwed on trying to get your own web domain. Nothing I can do to help. But if you learned something from this series, please take a moment in the comments and let us know. Our goal is to reinvent workflow for everyone and drive creatives to work exclusively in the cloud. And that means this is the last episode of Starting a Startup because, well, Strata is started. So what's next? Well, there's one specific criticism I want to address. Many people have said that we are too cagey on what Strata actually is. That's a fair criticism. But the truth is, we're not intentionally dodging that. This journey has really been about a work in progress, and we wanted to focus on the entrepreneurial elements of a startup and not the product because we didn't have a product. But all that's about to change, and we want your help. We're taking everything that we've learned, we're hiring new talent, and we're putting it all to code. And we invite you to sign up for Strata.tech so you can be part of the build process. Because next up, we are switching from starting a startup to building an alpha.